Dee Rail hollered into the mic. Suck my big black, rhymes with kick or shtick. 2,000 heads snapped back, amps buzzing at the channel.
We're from Boston town. Name of the band is 007. Strictly in the musical heaven, as I would say.
Boston, 1980 to 1982. Too many great bands, too many great clubs, college radio that never slept, Cantones, the Underground, the Channel, WMBR, WZBC, loft parties on Albany Street, rhythms leaking out of Orson apartments and echoing across the city. Remember the Orson Welles cinema? You're about to hear the story of Microwave defacing it. He was 007's roadie until the dead Kennedys hired him. This story and so many more, all packed into less than half an hour. This was a time, a scene that can't be recreated, but it can be remembered. That's what this deep dive is for. You're about to hear a full-throttle audio trip into Boston's early 80s underground, hosted, oddly enough, by artificial voices, but don't tune out just yet. Most of the talk sounds very real. You won't even notice that these are replicants until you hit a glitch. Usually, when they try to say 007, it comes out a dozen bizarre different ways. So get ready for some hilariously garbled words like NPR hosts sort of tripping on acid and eating toffee at the same time. But beyond the weirdness, there's real depth here. This isn't some lazy AI regurgitation. It's based on months of research, a pile of original resources, and a ton of trial and error to bring the story to life. What you're hearing is artificial delivery, but the material is the real deal. You're gonna hear the hosts talk about somebody named Zito, as in, according to the Zito doc, that's Vivian Zito, the credited author of the long-form timeline this is based on. The full piece, her full piece, packed with band history, scene, context, and a lot of names that you'll recognize if you're from Boston, is free to read. Just click the link in the YouTube description of this YouTube thing. It's over 1,000 words, so it may take almost an hour for most readers to consume, but she understands Boston in the early 1980s. Also, some listeners might already be familiar with Notebook LM, the AI research tool behind a lot of what you're hearing. Definitely check it out. It's like a smart, personalized knowledge base that lets you ask questions across multiple sources at once, and you are the one putting all the sources together. It's a total sort of game changer for digging into messy archives like this one. Alright, so volume up. Let's go back to Boston. Raw nights, weird gigs, and the deep current that pulled it all together.
Controlling this time. I'm gonna change you just got to get on that one. Okay, picture this. Early 1980s Boston, not the postcard version, but a city pulsing with this raw, kind of untamed musical energy.
Right, you had punk just slamming into post-punk, ska rhythms bouncing off reggae grooves. It was a real melting pot.
Exactly. And right in the middle of this electrifying mix, a band called 007 emerges. They weren't just playing songs, they really seemed to be that eclectic vibe.
Yeah, they quickly became the sort of magnetic center for Boston's whole underground rock scene.
And that's what we're digging into today. Using Vivian Zito's 007 story as our guide, we want to explore how that very specific time and place, the early 80s Boston social world, really shaped 007.
It's about the music, sure, but also the environment, the clubs, the people, the city's undercurrents, even the big international bands passing through. All that stuff fed into who they became.
Totally. We're talking legendary spots like the Channel, the Underground, the Rat, but also maybe less obvious places like the Bradford Ballroom, even Boston College gigs.
And those underground artists' lofts down on Albany Street in Roxbury. Zito calls it a bit like Warhol's factory. Plus, you can't ignore the racial dynamics, the run-ins with police. It was all part of the fabric.
Right. So we'll look at how all these interactions, plus maybe seeing bands like the Specials or the Clash up close, really molded 007's sound of their whole journey.
It wasn't just one thing, was it? It sounds like a constant feedback loop. The city shaped the band, and the band added its energy back into the city. It's that interplay we want to unpack.
Okay, let's dive in with a really powerful moment from Zito's story. April 8th, 1982. The Channel, 007, are opening for Fear.
Ah, Fear. The LA hardcore provocateurs, definitely a contrast.
Big time. So 007's playing their set, and someone from the crowd yells a racial slur at Dee Rail, their bassist, who was, well, a really charismatic frontman too.
And Dee's response, as Zito tells it, was just immediate and defiant. Oh yeah, suck my big black dick. Yeah, it wasn't some stage act, It was just raw defending himself right there. It really throws you into that confrontational edge that part of the scene had.
And it connects instantly to that whole "this is Boston, not LA" vibe, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It wasn't just words on a record sleeve. It was this fierce sense of local pride, maybe a bit defensive, even while the city was soaking up sounds from everywhere.
Interesting contrast with Fear, too. Because Zito mentions Lee Ving was known for his confrontational style with the audience.
Right, but this felt different.
Yeah.
This was 007 dealing with racism from within their own quote-unquote community. It highlights how intense and complicated those punk spaces could be.
So how did 007 even get to that point? To understand that, we got to rewind a bit. Zito takes us back to the mid-'70s, a suburban basement north of Boston.
Yeah, Larry LaFurla and Gary Miles.
Ninth graders, bonding over more than just homework, right? They were digging into imported copies of NME Cream, Trouser Press.
That's such a key detail. They weren't just listening to local radio. They were actively seeking out the cutting edge, especially from the UK. Zito says other early bands kind of fizzled, but Larry and Gary stuck together. That shared musical curiosity was the core.
And the rebellious spirit wasn't just in the music. There's this amazing, almost unbelievable story Zito tells about their roadie, Microwave.
Oh yeah, the Orson Welles cinema incident.
Exactly. After seeing the film Rockers, he apparently spray-painted 007 right across the cinema screen.
Just way.
Who knows? But it got him attention to fine. And then Microwave heads off to work for the dead Kennedys. Zito nails it. Sue 1980.
It really captures that impulsive, maybe slightly absurd need to just make a mark,
Yeah.
And the dead Kennedys link just reinforces that punk connection.
Around the same time, Zito highlights the Albany Street Roxbury artist loft scene. She calls it a Warhol's factory.
It sounds like a crucial social hub. Not just places to live, but these melting pots.
Totally. Punk rockers, experimental artists, new wave types, disco fans, even black gay subcultures, all mixing at these legendary parties.
And that cross-pollination, that's vital. It wasn't rigid scenes. Zito says 007 plugged right into that punk post-punk core pretty fast. They became part of that swirl.
So how did the actual band lineup come together? It starts with Steve Harrell looking for a singer.
Right. And he almost passed on Larry LaFurla even after hearing a demo of Teenage Captive. He liked the song, but was getting worn down by auditions, apparently.
He was kind of leaning towards just having Dee Rail as the sole frontman. It's funny how these small moments can change everything, isn't it?
Totally. But then Annie comes into the story.
Annie, the Thai immigrant punk bartender at Spit. Another legendary Boston spot.
Yeah, spit was crucial. So Annie hears the demo Steve's playing, gets interested. Steve mentions Larry's other band, The Standards, has a gig at Cantone's.
But Steve couldn't make it because of bad weather or something.
Right. But Annie went anyway, took the initiative.
And she wasn't just listening to the music, was she? She was watching Larry, his presence, his energy.
Exactly. She went back to Spit and just told Steve, straight up, that guy, he's got it. You'd be crazy not to follow up.
Wow. Zito paints her as this real tastemaker at Spit. New talent when she saw it. No messing around.
And Steve Harrell himself apparently gives Annie the credit, not just the demo, for 007 forming the way it did. It shows how important those scene figures can be.
Her secret audition, basically.
Pretty much. That blunt recommendation was the catalyst.
So the band gets formed. Their first gig, late 1980, Boston College.
Yeah.
Opening for Can Highland's band.
And they made an impression right away. David Jean Frito reviewed it for the BC paper, The Heights.
What did he say?
He noted Larry's Terry Hall-ish presence, like the special singer Steve's guitar, Dee's startlingly agile bass. And he finished by saying, they may be new, but they're not kidding around.
That's pretty strong for a first review.
Definitely. And Steve Harrell's quote about Boston being the perfect town to start a band in back then is interesting, too. He felt punk had cleared out the old stale stuff.
Created space?
Yeah, fertile ground. Zito emphasizes how organic it felt. No marketing plan. Just a name, 007, and a shared obsession with rhythm, rebellion, and not fitting in.
Peter Holt's description of Dee Rail sounds amazing. Too complex, magnetic. And Zito mentions they got tight live really fast. Those early gigs were clearly vital for shaping them.
But things started to shift a bit in late 80. Larry left Salem State, doubling down on the band.
And then, December 1980, John Lennon's murder. That must have sent a shockwave through everyone.
Absolutely. And Zito points out something interesting. Just days later, U2 played a small gig at the Paradise, kind of foreshadowing the musical changes coming down the pike.
And crucially, Thevil and Seven became regulars at the Underground, which opened that same month, December 80.
Right, a key post-punk venue. Hosted Mission of Burma, New Order later on. Zito says 007 was treated like a new thing locally right from the start.
Playing there regularly must have been huge for them, refining their show, connecting with people.
For sure. Those early experiences, Zito argues, made them battle-tested, ready for anything, like that confrontation at the Channel later.
The reputation kept growing, right?
Yeah.
There was a live tape from the Rat.
Yeah, featuring Dee's Skablu Beat original Betcha by Golly Wow. Apparently got decent airplay on college radio, WMBR, WZBC, WURN.
That college radio support was huge back then.
Oh, definitely. It got their sound out beyond the clubs. And they were known for these explosive live shows, opening for a really wide range of local bands.
Like who?
The Outlets, Peter Dayton Band, The Proletariat, The Neighborhoods, Boys Life, Lou Miami, a real mix.
And they even crossed over into reggae and dub.
Yeah, opening for Mikey Dread at Spit, The Lone Ranger at the Bradford Ballroom. That was pretty unusual, Zito notes. They were straddling mod, punk, reggae, dub, really blurring lines.
Which leads us to another massive moment. Opening for the Specials. August 27th, 1981.
Yeah, at the Bradford Ballroom. And Zito reminds us this was near the end for that classic Specials lineup. They were kind of escaping the chaos back in England, the whole ghost town backdrop.
Social unrest, recession.
Wow. So the atmosphere at the Bradford, this kind of ornate old place with political activists there too, Zito describes it as this collision of music, politics, subculture.
And how did 007 get that gig?
The fabulous Billy Goons, another local band, apparently pushed for them, which says a lot about the buzz 007 already had.
Biggest stage yet for them,
Yeah.
probably. And the perfect crowd, right?
Yeah.
Mods, punks, ska fans.
Absolutely. Zito mentions this surreal vibe, knowing it was the last stand for the original Specials, a band whose whole two-tone thing was so deep in 007's DNA, that transatlantic connection was right there on stage.
Any interesting interaction?
Yeah, the drummer, John Bradbury, apparently mistook Larry for Iggy Pop because of his eye makeup, and there was some backstage chat between John, Dee, and Larry.
What about the others? Terry Hall? Jerry Dammers?
Zito says they were polite, but kind of detached. You could feel the tension within the Specials, apparently. It was unspoken, but there.
Still, being associated with the Specials like that.
Huge. Zito argues it cemented their image, made them seem like a band with something to say, boosted their profile instantly in the clubs. It connected them to that whole lineage.
And then, kind of out of nowhere, they play this gig in New York City.
Yeah, a street-level party in SoHo, super random. Zito thinks it was probably arranged through Dee's BC roommate, Kenny King.
Kenny King.
Oh.
Wasn't he in a John Waters movie?
Polyester, yeah. So ties to that downtown art scene. It was raw, uninvited, just 007, this Boston dub punk unit crashing the Manhattan cool scene. No flyers, no permits, just playing.
Back in Boston, more encounters with touring bands who mentioned Bad Manners.
Right. Larry apparently did this killer, cartoonish Marky Smith impression for Bad Manners after their channel show.
I'm Deco down.
Their drummer, Brian Tuitt, just gave him this totally deadpan look. Hilarious little moment, shows the kind of weird interactions happening.
And Zito paints this picture of their life back then as free and easy times.
Yeah, creative chaos in their Allston apartment. Lots of dub, rum, writing songs together. That's where No Longer Functional came from. Written collaboratively on basic gear.
Huh?
Very DIY.
Another key connection was with Ranking Roger from the English Beat, right?
Absolutely. When the English Beat first played Boston at Metro in '81, Spit was the hangout spot. Larry and Dee apparently hit it off with Roger immediately.
What was the connection?
Zito highlights shared stuff. Similar age, being black musicians in largely white pun-new wave scenes that stylized Ranking vocal delivery, found a real kinship there. So when 007 opened for the English Beat at the Channel in '82, it felt more like a reunion. Zito says their set was really sharp, and there was even talk of them maybe touring the East Coast together.
Wow, that could have been huge.
Yeah, it shows the momentum they had, the respect they were getting from these major UK bands mixing similar styles.
Okay, but the peak moment, arguably, opening for The Clash.
August 1982, Cape Cod Coliseum.
Yeah.
Massive venue, part of the Know Your Rights tour.
How did that happen?
Their manager, Julie Farman, Zito says she was relentless. It was a last-minute call day of the show from Cosmo Vinyl, the Clash's manager.
And he specifically picked them.
Yeah, Zito reports he singled them out as a racially mixed band with a funk vibe. That's how they were being seen beyond Boston.
And the Clash liked them.
Seemed like it. Mick Jones apparently said they sound like us. Paul Simonon just said they were great. High praise.
And Joe Strummer even asked the crowd about them.
Yep. How is 007? Imagine hearing that from Strummer in front of 7,000 people.
Unreal. Steve Harrell must have been buzzing.
He called it the most exciting gig of his life. Totally surreal. And they actually got 4 tracks recorded off the mixing board that night, maybe for a live album that never quite happened then.
Promoter Don Law's comment to Julie Farman sums it up. You've got balls.
Laughs, yeah. Zito includes some great anecdotes from the roadie, Eric Streeter, and friends who were there. It was clearly a huge deal.
And the connection continued. Simon invited Larry to a sound check.
Yeah, a few weeks later at the Orpheum in Boston for the last show of that tour, it really felt like 007 were becoming more than just a local band.
And Strummer's weird parting words.
Oh yeah, after the Orpheum show, back at the Channel, Strummer apparently said to Larry, "Remember, a mandolin has 8 strings."
What does that even mean?
Who knows? Cryptic Strummer wisdom adds to the legend.
But Zito notes a shift after that Clash gig high.
Yeah, interestingly, she describes the band's sound becoming maybe less intense, a bit more introverted, kind of meandering, foreshadowing the shift to Dub 7.
Like maybe processing that big moment led them somewhere else musically?
Could be. And then there was that Boston Phoenix review that misinterpreted some lyrics as anti-bussing.
Ugh, that must have been frustrating. Zito says it wasn't the intended meaning at all.
Right. They did get some traction with Gavel Groove on WBCN, which was great exposure, but it ended up being their only single.
So despite the live reputation.
Yeah, they struggled to translate it into records or sustained radio play, which led to the morph into Dub 7 by late '83.
How is Dub 7 different?
Zito describes them as tighter, maybe more polished, but losing some of that raw 007 energy, more focused on the rehearsal space.
Did Dub 7 get noticed?
They made the finals of the '84 WBCN Rock and Roll Rumble, which was prestigious locally, and ironically, Gavel Groove, the 007 single, was used in WBCN commercials around then.
So the band's identity was getting a bit blurry?
Exactly. Zito nails it. Yeah. Stranded between worlds. Too slick for the underground, maybe still too weird for the majors. It's a tough spot.
And eventually, Dub 7 became the Kessels.
Right, a more straightforward pop direction. They recorded a song, Leasin' Up with the Kessels, mid-'80s, mixed by Tim O'Hare.
But it didn't come out.
Nope. The band themselves apparently thought it was too pop and shelved it. The Kessels didn't last long after that. Another twist in the road.
That's fascinating, shelving your own song for being too pop.
Shows the internal conflicts, maybe navigating scene expectations versus their own evolution.
But the story doesn't end there, does it?
No, which is amazing. In 2023, the master tape for Loosen Up with the Kessels was found.
Seriously?
Yeah.
After all that time?
Yeah. It had to be restored, baked, as they call it, and then it was finally released on streaming, and people liked it. Yeah, got good reviews, comparisons to psychedelic, post-punk. An instrumental version came out too. It's like this lost chapter finally got heard.
What a journey.
Yeah.
So looking back, Zito really emphasizes 007 and Dub 7's importance to that whole early 80s Boston scene, right?
Absolutely. Their unique sound, blending all those genres, and especially their live intensity, influenced a lot of younger bands, even without huge commercial success. The memories people have of those shows are powerful.
It really speaks to how live music works, doesn't it? It's about being there, that energy. Recordings capture something, but not everything.
Exactly. The impact was in the room, in the moment, within that specific Boston context.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've really walked through that incredibly charged social world 007 navigated. Clubs, lofts, campuses, confrontations.
Encounters with legends like the Specials and the Clash, all of it feeding into their sound, their identity, their whole path. It was all connected.
And the rediscovery of that Kessels track is such a cool reminder of all the hidden stories tucked away in local music history.
Definitely. Bands that maybe didn't break big nationally, but were absolutely vital to their time and place.
It really makes you think about the power of being there, of live performance. We absolutely recommend checking out whatever 007 and Dub 7 recordings you can find and just exploring that whole fertile Boston scene from the early 80s.
For sure. There's so much great music and so many fascinating stories still waiting to be heard.
Strictly in a musical heaven, as I was said.